Sex and video games, the American way. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, well wishes, and those other people. Welcome to Pissing in the Livestream number 7. Welcome to each and every one of you. Good evening. My name is the Immortal Yell Chaos. Joining me for this Pissing in the Livestream, a very good friend of mine, the 10-foot Tokyo Terror, Kid Shoryuken.
For no reason at all, man. Oh, yeah.
A terrorist in his own right, my man, Sean Geef Riley.
What's up, guys? I'm just hanging out with my Yarn Yoshi amiibo. Never mind.
And the
Not sure you
man
should say that
coming
out loud.
The baddest man coming out of Arizona, the Bullet Belt Messiah, the Ravishing Razor Fist.
Welcome to HaterMania 31, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, sure, we may lack in prominence, but at least we have better booking.
Speaking of lacking in prominence, welcome to our program. We got a great show for you today. A big show, a king-size show for as long as we can hold our bladders anyway. So we hope you settle down, get yourself some libations, some groceries, and have a great big time right here on Pissing in the Livestream number 7. Without wasting any time at all, I want to remind you to check the contents down below, what they used to call the description box. You can find all the contact information to get a hold of myself, the Razor Fist, Kid Shoryuken, and Sean Riley. That way you can tell us to fuck off and all that sort of thing, because that's what you do, and we appreciate you. And also want to say hello to all the fine folks in the Hater Nation on the HateBit Podcast Network of Hate on Facebook. Again, links down there. Check it out. You'll have a great time. Without wasting any time at all, I also want to remind you that we're going to be taking questions from the box down below. So if you've got a question, a comment, a concern, anything like that, please drop it in the box provided. Now, as I was saying before I was wasting all this time, without wasting any time at all, we're going to talk about WrestleMania 31 because you fine folks wanted us to discuss WrestleMania. I want to talk about, first and foremost, how WrestleMania seems to have become a beast that cannot be fed. It is absolutely astounding the pomp and circumstance put into what I would consider nothing more than Monday Night Raw Plus. There were, of course, a few standouts from the program. Most importantly, what was something that's striking to me was how the show was so heavily front-loaded. All of the talent that company possesses was on the pre-show before the pay-per-view. And I just found it absolutely astounding. Razor Fist, you said that you didn't care for the program, did you?
You could say that out loud 5 times in a row. Sure.
Well, then I will. Razor Fist hated WrestleMania.
I stopped watching after the Sting Triple H opus, and I fully intend to never watch again. It was pretty awful. It was pretty much the worst thing I've ever seen. It was absolutely horrendous.
Now, you mean absolutely horrendous in the way that the match went over, or the way that fucking Triple H came out dressed as the Terminator and tried to steal the babyface spotlight halfway through his entrance to the ring?
Yeah, look, you want to talk about a Triple H glory fest, ain't shit gonna top WrestleMania 31 for sheer trailing clouds of glory hole. About 45 minutes into that cyberpunk suckfest of an entrance, when Triple H pops from beneath the stage with a physical manifestation of the figurative pole he's had jammed up his ass for going on 15 fucking years. Did you notice that? He had a pole in his ass. Did you?
I did.
He did. I saw that.
I saw it.
At that moment, I knew we were in for a throbbing treat. Like, on what planet, in the farthest reaches of what fucking galaxy does Sting's entrance come before Triple H's?
WrestleMania 31.
Yeah.
Triple H's universe.
So you got Schwarzenegger on your
Apparently
Titantron.
in the WWE universe.
Yeah. It's like, great, you got Schwarzenegger, here's a cookie. In case you didn't notice from the rolling waves of utter silence, your PG-era audience with the combined age of 5 required to find a succession of rehearsed suplexes from Brock Lesnar to be a legitimately impressive feat aren't likely to identify with a movie series that hasn't been relevant since nearly 10 years before the last time your fucking company was. I mean, I said this on Twitter. Why not just name your dick Ego, drop trow, and stroke the fuck out of it in the middle of the ring at that point? It's basically what he did. He came out last. He had like a 25-minute entrance, and then he wins. Like, what?
They're not gonna stroke the ego like that because it's a PG show.
Yeah, I don't know. It would also give a slightly different spin to the "come with me if you want to live" catchphrase.
I knew that was coming. I knew it was coming.
It had to be done.
I just didn't want to be the one to do it.
Well,
But seriously, forget Triple H versus Booker T at Mania. What Mania was that when they fought each other for the world title?
WrestleMania 26.
Something.
Yeah. Up until now, that had been the single biggest fuck you, open mouth, insert Paul Levesque 2-inch wonder, self-congratulatory shit show in this asshole's footnote of a career. Sting versus Triple H at Mania 31 is now like the mask of Nefertiti of shitty booking. And I'm more disappointed in Sting, honestly, than anybody else. He had an opportunity. He had two choices, basically. Either retire as the one guy that Vince McMahon could never buy, or he could go to WWE, get his ass kicked by Triple H, look like a complete fucking chump, and then maybe next year beat The Undertaker. Because you know that's what this is about. He might, and in all likelihood will, beat The Undertaker next year, so he has to lose first and look like shit. It's like, fuck you. Fuck this company and this fucking politics. The more politics there are backstage, the less interesting the show on the stage is. That's what I've found.
Well, absolutely, and I love the way you poked fun at the wrestling match, all the while ignoring that. And this is something I'm going to steal this. I'm going to steal this from some of the folks over there. I want to say hello to people in the Hate Bit Podcast Network of Hate. This was the match of 100 years. Of course, Triple H being 45 and Sting being 55, making 100. So there's that. But I don't want this conversation to end without a serious discussion about what I learned about human anatomy. And what I was telling Mrs. Yell Chaos, what I call old people bruises, the pooling of the blood on the shoulders and hips of Sting and Triple H, who didn't do a whole lot more than really just hit each other kind of hard. There was not really much wrestling to speak of.
Yeah, it was like a liver spot fighting a melanoma. That's what it was.
and not only that, but what do you need to tell you that you should not do this anymore, except to where you look like the protagonist from the Return of the Living Dead who didn't know they died?
I know. At this point, the Scorpion death drop is going to refer to his coffin.
And not only that was I want to bring this up too. I talked about this earlier in the week. I'm going to use the finger quotes right now. The run-in by the NWO. Now, mind you, the run-in, which would barely have been classified as a saunter, because it took the NWO 35 fucking minutes to get to the ring. If you're trying to save your friend, you might want to, get there. Yeah. But what do I know?
But it's not their friend. That's the greatest part about it. It was 3 of Triple H's buddies against 3 of Triple H's buddies. Gosh, I wonder who's winning this match. I just fucking wonder.
That's the thing that really
fast down a ramp.
And people
walk
say
too fast
step
down that
down
ramp,
Vince.
tear another quad.
Step down Vince is a hashtag. Oh, Vince McMahon's out of touch. Vince McMahon's the problem. Triple H is like at least half the problem with this company, folks. It's not all Vince McMahon. It's not all him being out of touch. It's about Triple H touching himself.
Well, I think if you notice now, there's some young kids who might not remember this, but Triple H is essentially following the corporate Mr. McMahon playbook, play by play. And this notion that Triple H was ever a notable professional wrestler of any kind is absolutely moot. That's what I found so funny. Like they were gonna settle some score when.
Oh God! How my eyes rolled into the back of my skull. I was looking at brain matter when I heard JBL honestly say out loud, without a trace of irony, "It's the best of WWE versus the best of WCW." I'm like,
I fell off the couch.
Did somebody replace Triple H with Undertaker while I wasn't looking? Is he a ninja? Like, what? Did he drop a smoke pellet and suddenly Undertaker was in the fucking ring? Because I didn't see the best of fucking WWE. I saw Triple H, who is a glorified mid-carder and always will be, who has only ever been the main event jobber, except that he wins. But it still doesn't change the fact that he's a jobber. The Brooklyn Brawler could win 100 matches in a row and still be a fucking jobber because he's the Brooklyn fucking Brawler. Triple H is the same goddamn way except with the main event. Kind of like Kane. I love Kane, but that's the role that Kane fills. It's like saying Kane versus Sting would be the best of WWE versus the best of... Yeah, it just makes no fucking sense.
I was actually going to draw a reference to Greg Gagne, but that might go way too far back.
Yeah, way too far.
But speaking of people, getting pushes when they ought not. But and then was that the end of what went on? I guess so. So a bunch of old people got together and pissed all over your WrestleMania experience, and they want you to pay $9.99 to see it again next month.
I just don't get... Okay, and then Brock Lesnar comes out and does a bunch of suplexes, and it's the best WrestleMania ever. You have shitty taste, okay? You have exceptionally shitty taste. Your fucking taste is doing the backstroke in the septic tank of your home right now. You have no fucking taste. Fucking suplex. Didn't fucking Benoit do this already? Oh, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to say his name, but Brock Lesnar is not the only guy to have done this. And actually, the Benoit analog is fairly apt, because neither of them can cut a fucking promo.
Benoit and Taz already did this.
Can we put Dean Malenko in that group, too?
And fucking Lance Storm.
I love a good Chris Benoit. I love a good Chris Benoit promo. It's just like, the silence behind the violence, a horseman. Yeah.
Well, no, the whole time you're just like, what happened to his teeth? But who really comes out after this whole thing, after the big to-do about the end of the Royal Rumble, and Roman Reigns, who interestingly has alliterative initials to the Royal Rumble, gets shit on for the next for the last few months, only to his big pay-per-view, his big Royal Rumble, his big WrestleMania. His big WrestleMania event was simply to stall for 17 minutes.
Yep.
And if you didn't know it, they gave it to Seth Rollins. And I don't want to tell them how to run their business, because frankly, I don't even think they know what their business is. Oh, well, tell the people.
I just did tell them how to run their fucking business.
Oh, okay. Well, I forgot. But it's interesting to speak of. This was WrestleMania, the event, and I was talking with Mr. Riley earlier, and I don't think we need to. They said the best part was we didn't drive up for it, because we're both here in Southern California. We could have driven to San Jose in a couple of hours.
That would have been fucking stupid.
It would have been retarded. But the point I was trying to make was, number one, we didn't have to go through it. Number two, I don't think I'm going to care again until next WrestleMania. And number three, this company continually tries to beat this shit and put the boots to professional wrestling at an event called WrestleMania. Meanwhile, nothing has ever made them any money outside of professional wrestling. Yeah, football didn't make any money, modeling didn't make any money, bodybuilding didn't make any money, conditioning supplements didn't make any money. All the while, the wrestling fans keep coming back.
But what about that? What about that casino?
Oh yeah, and don't forget the WWF Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. The massive success that was.
It's a parking lot now.
It's not even a parking lot.
No, it's a vacant lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But XFL, guys, XFL.
I have pictures of that stupid.
Yeah. I can call out letters too. NXT. It doesn't make the slightest fucking difference. The point is, it's not making any money. In fact, I don't want. I'm gonna throw Sean Riley in. What?
Hey, you can call out letters. You're already well in advance of Brock Lesnar's promo skills.
And
3 letters in a row. What?
I know, and HBP, I can call out letters all day long. But I can also get myself over because I don't have a tramp stamp.
That's not confirmed.
No. Not only do you not have a tramp stamp, you don't have a giant penis-sized one on your chest. I'm sorry, Brock Lesnar, you have a penis on your chest. That's not a dagger, it's a dick. Oh my God.
It's a rather pointy one, which means it's going in whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
So it's a dog
no
dick.
Wrestling.
Difference.
Jesus Christ.
Soon we'll be making lipstick references on this program. What happened to this show? I swear to you. Anyway, I think that was WrestleMania.
That was enough WrestleMania.
That was enough WrestleMania.
Enough WrestleMania.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
I think my IQ dropped during that segment.
Oh, no. We only bring it right back up here. Now, if you listen to it from them, there's that. I want to take some time before we before we get onto this topic, because we're talking about the Zelda Wii U delay. This has really upset some people. So before we go into this topic, I want everyone to look at my Star Fox sweatband.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That'll cool you out. Now, Mr. Riley,
Does this help?
There we go.
Does
John
this help?
Riley. Mr. Riley, tell us your feelings about the people losing their minds over the Wii U delay on Zelda.
You're all fucking idiots. If you got mad because this game is being delayed, you're either a fucking idiot or you don't know why it was delayed.
Yeah, you like
the
how
official word.
Well, how many fucking games has Microsoft and Sony delayed in the last couple of years? I mean, Xbox One. Xbox One, they're making a big deal out of Halo 5, which is the first major exclusive since fucking launch. And the fucking PS4, Jesus Christ. I'm playing Bloodborne, which was delayed. I'm playing freaking... I'm trying to think of the other major delay, but needless to say, there were like 4 major delays on PS4 of either exclusives or major third-party games. I mean, Jesus Christ, nobody loses faith in fucking Sony over that. So
no, it's because
it's the double standard.
It's Nintendo and it's Zelda. That's the problem. I mean, you bring up Microsoft. I wish they had delayed the fucking Xbox 360. Then it wouldn't have had all this.
Isn't delaying Zelda games commonplace?
Yeah, but
delaying Zelda is pretty commonplace, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is the internet age.
Yeah. Well, and I think everyone's leaving out that, this is not a new thing. This is not an inconvenience. This is what's called a tradition.
Yeah.
Every Zelda game that I'm aware of has been delayed. Even the original Legend of Zelda, which had to be transferred from the Famicom disk system to cartridge-based for the NES and for the North American market, that one was also delayed. This shit happens. As Shigeru Miyamoto once said, a delayed game can become a good game. A hastily put together game is bad for all times.
But in case you haven't played Order 1886, it doesn't always turn into a good game. Necessarily.
This is true. This is true.
Hence the can. That's why we put can there. Apparently, if you're from Japan, apparently you can make these. I don't want to badmouth Western developers, but they haven't done very well by themselves in recent years. And I don't want to be so dismissive of people that think that this is a serious problem, but it isn't. You have bigger things to worry about. There are other video games.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't seem like it, because the people who are making video games don't have any...
Of all consoles to be complaining about lack of software on, the Wii U's the only console that's actually coming out with software right now. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. Like, of all the places to start bitching about a delay, the console that actually has games right now is the one you pick? What the fuck is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
What the fuck? PS4 has nothing. It has Bloodborne, and that's it. And if you don't
but
like
there might be an Uncharted game
fucked.
Eventually.
Yeah. Eventually, there'll be an Uncharted game. That's your defense.
Yeah. Eventually.
Yeah. Eventually. And a bunch of remastered PS3 games.
Yeah.
Well, bravo. So we got that going for us. The 8-Bit Podcast was originally a show designed to denigrate such things, and now it's just getting more and more depressing as time goes on, really. It just seems like a pity parade, and it's not for us, but for the so-called, entertainment software people. What am I talking about? Entertainment software industry. But anyway, with that, goodness gracious, I want to make it known that this is live whiskey, so if I do trail off, you know why. So, folks, and Razorfist said we should talk about this. There was an announcement that that was a couple of weeks ago now, or not quite a couple of weeks ago, between Nintendo Company Limited and DNA Mobile for their announcement of their partnership. They're going to be working together on mobile games. We're not going to talk about that, but we are going to talk about the fervor surrounding the supposed Nintendo NX, the new Nintendo console that everyone thinks that the Wii U will soon be abandoned to develop for. Yeah. Mr. Fitz, did you have something to say about that?
I don't see them abandoning the Wii U. That's the main thing. That's what I'm so impressed with Nintendo about, is that if this were Sony, they would have cut and run by now. Or if this were Microsoft, I mean, we're already hearing about the next Microsoft system. So we know these companies would have fucking cut and run if they were in similar straits as the Wii U. But to Nintendo's credit, they know you don't build consumer confidence by abandoning a console after people have already invested in it. So it's still going to be getting games. until they finally come out with its successor. And yeah, does it need a successor? Probably. It is behind the competition in terms of hardware. So clearly they feel like they need to take a big hardware step ahead. And hopefully they do. I think that'll be to their benefit and all gamers who wind up buying it. So, but what I'm most impressed with is, I mean, you look at every system that for Nintendo didn't do as well as the one before it. You know, I don't consider the Nintendo 64 a failure at all. The GameCube was definitely not as big of a success as their previous consoles, and I love the GameCube, but it was a slight step back, and PS2 and Xbox were definitely like 1 and 2 that generation. But Nintendo didn't abandon that platform at all. There's some fantastic hidden gems on the GameCube, just some unbelievable exclusives that you can only play on the fucking Nintendo GameCube. It's a pattern. Nintendo respect their consumers enough to not abandon their platforms.
Yeah, and you know, they, if anything, they learn from you know who, the big S, that you know, you gotta see things through, and that's just the way this business is, unfortunately. I know that a lot of people immediately came to me, and I'm not going to name names, but a number of people came to me and says, "What do you think? Should I buy the Wii U, or should I wait for this Nintendo NX thing?" It's like, the Nintendo NX is barely a name.
Yeah.
It's a code name at best. If you want to wait, you might as well sit around and wait for Jesus to come back, because it'll be a similar stretch. You know, and also, if I know anything about the way Nintendo cycles work, the NX is probably going to be a handheld device. I know there's talk of a Nintendo hybrid handheld home console thing, which will be interesting. I don't know if we're quite ready for that sort of thing, but
I don't know.
I think it'll be definitely interesting. Kid Shoryuken, have you been drinking?
Mm. Heavily.
Good. We just need to make sure that everyone's.
But I did have 2 cents to throw in, though.
Oh, please.
Again, this does kind of seem like people shitting their pants over something that's pretty commonplace. As soon as a company releases a console, they immediately start work on the next one. So it's not terribly surprising that Nintendo would have something else in the works to follow the Wii U. They do have to continue to sell things and make money and thrive as a company, don't they? I don't understand why people are so surprised by that. Like there's a thought process out there that says that Nintendo's going to stop at some point. It's weird to me.
Yeah, it's bizarre. The longest abiding company, the one that is one generation away from the biggest success in the history of the company, and everybody's like, when are they going to die? When are they going to die? I don't know. Probably around the time they stop printing money, I guess. That would probably be step 1, you drooling fucking
It's
retard.
fairly accurate.
Well, and the other thing you have to take into account is, when are they going to die? I don't know. How long would it take you to spend $50 billion?
I know how long it would take Sony to lose it. About 10 years.
They were pushing for more. That's what this 4K TV shit is all about.
Oh,
Speaking
wait,
of
that's
which,
not true. They lost $90 billion in that time. That's right.
well, that's because if you know anything about the PlayStation 3, they're overachievers. They
It's true. They go for the brass ring.
Exactly. If you're gonna bomb, atomic fucking bomb, and that's what Sony did. Hence why, and that's what brings us to our next talking point, which was just announced today. The fine folks over at Sony Japan have bought OnLive. Now, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people who say, "Holy shit, OnLive is still a thing," and everyone else is saying, "What the fuck is OnLive?" OnLive was, or is for the next hour or so, is not the first streaming service of content in terms of entertainment software, but one of the first dedicated. I think it did come after the PSP Go, which was another instance of not necessarily streaming, but non-physical media-based gaming hardware. Sony, and there's not many details available right now, but Sony has bought and plans to shut down OnLive if you're not ready. I'm sure that a lot of people were already on Kotaku and Destructoid and all those other jerk-off websites that were first to publish this sort of thing. And but we thank you for coming to our jerk-off podcast, so don't forget that. But this raises many interesting points. Mr. Fist, you talked about that this does sound like a bit of a monopoly, a bit of antitrust. You said.
Yeah, the way that it sounds like they're kind of, and they've all but admitted that they're basically buying OnLive so that they're essentially buying the competition to shut it down. They've basically outright declared their intention to all but dissolve the OnLive brand. So in all likelihood, they're just kind of going to take the patents and let OnLive be dead or integrate it into PlayStation Now, which just launched, and that's what seems so quizzical to me, is that PlayStation Now, as anybody who owns a PS4 will know, we just got an update like a week ago. We now have PlayStation Now. They just launched their streaming service, their answer, if you will, to OnLive. So it doesn't make a whole lot of fucking sense unless you're just trying to shut down your fucking competition, which I don't see how that isn't grounds for antitrust or monopoly. I just don't understand that at all.
Well, what you don't seem to understand is people have to give a shit before it can be considered a monopoly. That's first and foremost.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, great, you've got a monopoly over an industry that nobody's investing in and nobody's actually using. It just doesn't make a whole lot of fucking sense. I mean, the biggest success in streaming online games is what? Fucking GameFly, right?
I don't know if is that truly streaming?
I don't know if they're streaming. I think that's like the Netflix for video games, right? They just send you games to your house.
Don't they do a streaming thing now, or is that just hard product mailed to your home and then you have to mail it back?
I think it's just hard copies.
Okay, so either way, like the best kind of renting program out there is basically GameFly, and even that is kind of like it's successful. It's not Netflix successful.
Right.
It's kind of a tepid success.
It's still here. It outlasted whatever bullshit that Blockbuster was doing a few years ago, so there's that.
It certainly did. Well, name something that hasn't outlasted Blockbuster over the last several years. But
I got nothing.
Music Plus.
But I just don't understand it at all.
It's a very interesting situation, absolutely, and also that came out with the news was that people who have purchased, Sony has no plans, at least as of now, has no plans to support existing OnLive customers. They will not be refunded the games that they've already purchased or bought licenses to or any sort, and that is causing some bit of a backlash, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I mean, how this is the first show years ago on this program, on this very program. We told you how cloud-based gaming is not the future and cannot be a good thing. And now, all those people that have invested however much and dug their heels into the ground and said, I'm an OnLive guy. You know, much like people that say that they're a Paul Heyman guy. Paul Heyman has far more credibility than OnLive does, though. So, I don't know which is sadder. But
well, I just did a rant on my webpage about, it is an audio-only rant about physical media and the merits of physical media, essentially making an argument for physical media as opposed to streaming media or digital distribution and so forth, and this really dovetails quite comfortably into that argument. Is if you don't own a physical thing, you can't call it property rights, because without property, you have no rights.
Possession is 9/10.
Absolutely. What were we saying there, Mr. Riley?
I said possession is 9/10, and if you do I own this water bottle if it's digitally downloaded? No.
Yeah, and even our physical product, and I'm well aware, even our physical product, if you read, if on a very remote chance your video game, your hard copy of a video game actually includes a booklet or manual, you'll often see a lot of legalese and fine print and bullshit that, for all I fucking know, signs your cock up for the Russian space program. But, and I'm sure in some kind of backdoor way that absolves you of any legal ownership. But still, you own a physical hard copy, and short of Bobby Kotick showing up with a fucking murder squad at your front door, they're not going to be able to take that hard copy from you. That is not the case with things like Steam, where you download a game, and if the developer so wish, they could disable that copy or put some sort of copy protection. I mean, I've always said, and I'm sure we're eventually going to have a situation like this if we haven't had it already and I'm just not aware of it, where a game comes out and maybe they find out that there's something wrong with it. Maybe they find out that a part of it is stolen. Maybe they find out some sort of controversy so that legally to avoid a backlash in a courtroom, they'll have to disable their game because it can't be in the hands of the public or else they'll be held legally liable, right? And so I have no doubt eventually we'll have a situation where that will happen, and then retroactively they will disable people's digital copies on Steam. You can mark my fucking words on it if it hasn't happened already. We're such a short walk from that with how many property rights we've already surrendered to these multinational cuntbag conglomerates. It's bullshit.
Absolutely, the absolute collapsing of the concept of personal property. And I don't want to engage in such hyperbole because then we're going to start being compared to Alex Jones in Prison Planet. And we can't have that. Nope. We at least have some shred of credibility on this program, not for long, but that's not the point.
And now for a 9-hour discussion on shadow people.
And the Bilderbergs. Actually, or whoever else it is. Bill Clinton, sold out your children. What they don't tell you is he talks that way because that's what the Texas air does to you. Isn't that true, Kid Shoryuken?
It does indeed.
Somebody's drunk.
Well, if somebody's going to be drunk, it might as well be him.
Might as well.
Exactly. And now, Mr. Riley, you've got the people and myself is actually rather worried about the concept of water now being downloadable.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, we're in a drought in California, and if we can't get it physically, I'll fucking download it from the Alps or fucking wherever I can get it from.
It's only a matter of time. And yes, there is a drought on in California, and I don't want to talk about that because that's one of those serious matters that I don't think should make it onto this program.
No, this is not a serious program.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. But also, I want to remind everyone down in the comment section, we will be taking your questions as soon as we find them, because there's a hell of a discussion, a bit of a whirlwind going on there. You can tell that we've really made it as an internet podcast, as a full-blown, contemporary radio program, when no one gives a shit what we're talking about in the comment section, but it just keeps moving and moving and moving and moving and arguing with each other. And I love that. It goes to show that there's still some passion left in this scene. So
it's a chat room. It's a chat room while a video plays.
Exactly.
Well, I guess there ought to be some passion, seeing as there's none left in game development.
No kidding. Which goes to show, at least we can still draw people. So
at least they're talking about Super Nintendo games. I give them credit for that.
That's true. And we're going to jump into that in a second. But I also wanted to remind you that it's really cool that the 8-Bit podcast seems to draw more than the WWF. Which
that's true. That's true.
Or at least we got people paying attention. So we
should start
as opposed to people paying $200 a ticket to look at their phone during a wrestling match.
Just start charging $9.99 a month for this shit.
You could get this for only $9.99. No,
yeah, and you can share your logins, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah. Now there was a talk. There was a talk about Big Dan 42082. This is a good question, and it's an interesting question. We've dealt with this before, where he says he wants to talk about graphics and how much is too much. And that's interesting that this discussion seems to come around every so often, and I think we have reached that saturation point to where graphics are soaking up far too much of budgets. Just the budgetary restrictions alone are being eaten up by this idea that games need to be movies. And I know we've discussed that before, but I find that interesting. Mr. Riley, don't you find that interesting?
I do.
Well, thank you.
Graphics aren't just eating up budgets; they're also.
I think graphics are.
Well, they're also eating up resources, physical memory resources and shit. I mean, we're seeing games on a PS4 that has how much RAM? 8 gigs, something to that effect.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And they've got RAM and screen tearing problems because the graphics are still so ridiculous. Like, the fidelity of the graphics and so forth is so ridiculous. It's like, talk about putting the cart before the horse. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Make the gameplay first and then make it look pretty. But it seems like the first order of business is, okay, lots of blur, lots of lens flare, lots of fucking fog everywhere and bloom out the ass. I mean, I was just playing a live stream of Thief 4. And this is a next-gen game on the PS4 with its 8 gigabytes of RAM. And I look up at a light, and the bloom causes the game to slow. Like, the frame rate is cut in half, and all I'm doing is looking at a light because there's so much fucking bloom. Fucking what the hell?
I haven't cared about graphics since the PlayStation days. Like I didn't really give a shit then. like more of even in the 16-bit, like that was a thing to talk about. Like, oh, who has better graphics, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis? And I don't care now. It all looks exactly the same. I don't see, like, I agree. We need to. I'd rather play a good game than a game that looks good.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion.
Well, and it seems like
given a clear choice. I mean, look, would you rather play Deadly Premonition, which looks like garbage and has amazing gameplay, or would you rather play Order 1886, which is basically just a movie? You barely interact with it. You essentially walk forward, shoot, shoot, walk forward, shoot, shoot, watch 12-hour cutscene, walk forward, shoot, shoot. That's your fucking gameplay. All right? And by the way, it's the same fucking gameplay as, you know, an Uncharted or whatever. I've never understood the accolades for games like that. Last of Us, completely linear. Corridor, shoot, shoot, move some blocks, move a fucking ladder, corridor, shoot, shoot. It's the same fucking thing.
What was that, Uke?
Kind of unfair. I mean, you could stack a lot of things up against Deadly Premonition and they wouldn't measure up. So I don't know if that's necessarily a fair comparison.
Fair comparison to what?
To Deadly Premonition.
Well, yeah, I mean, Deadly Premonition is excellent, but what I'm talking about, it's actually a very apt analog because Deadly Premonition is uglier than Sin, right? That's the entire point, is that we're comparing an ugly fucking game with great gameplay to a gorgeous fucking game with utterly mediocre gameplay.
Shitty game.
Yeah.
See, fabulous discussion right here on the 8-Bit Podcast. And I want to remind each and every one of you that if you're not paying attention to our discussion, the least you can do is look in the section down below and check out all the contact information to find myself, Razor Fist, Kid Shoryuken, and Mr. Sean Riley. You can find all of us on Twitter, on Facebook, on the YouTube, all that stuff, so please check that out. Now, there's a question for Razor Fist, but I'm going to cast a bunch of aspersions all over it first because I get to do that sort of thing. Mr. Fist, they want to know what you think, and everyone else can chime in if they like, about Combat Zone Wrestling out of, I think, Pennsylvania. I want to say that I think Combat Zone Wrestling is a bunch of fucking marks who chase each other around with lawnmower blades.
Yeah.
But, Mr.
Like
Fist, your thoughts?
without the budget. Which is saying something.
Now I'm
it's
intrigued.
like the difference between Taco Bell and Del Taco. That's the difference. Right there.
It's diarrhea either way.
W budget? I've seen high school talent shows with more budget than that.
Oh shit.
Jesus
That's true.
Yeah, that's what was it that I'm gonna quote Botchamania here. I think it was CZW 316 says I just broke my neck in a backyard in front of 5 people. Like that's basically CCW 316 says So fucking I just don't understand CCW. It really seems like they are their own audience. Like pretty much the entire
Very
audience.
much. That's exactly what it seems like. Like they're trying to impress people. They're like trying to impress all the old wrestlers, like Tommy Dreamer and Balls Mahoney. Those people are fucking in traction from doing that shit. They don't give a shit.
Could we get one more fat guy in a sleeveless shirt and baggy cargo shorts, please,
Holy
to
shit.
wrestle in
That
one of
is
these matches with fucking light tubes?
No,
Just
we can't because then they put them on NXT.
Hey, I almost wore a sleeveless shirt and baggy cargo shorts to this fucking recording. Almost. It was very close. I'm not even gonna lie.
Did you drop yourself on some fucking light tubes on the way over too?
I could have if I had known that was a prerequisite to be on the show. I would have done it.
I know, and then what you'd have to do is you'd have to fall off a ladder. You'd have to fall off a ladder and then cut a promo about how fucking great you are, despite the fact that you're morbidly obese.
But CZW, they've been doing these crossovers with Big Japan, which is like Japan's like kind of, I guess, their version of CZW. It's like a hardcore promotion, but like a handful of people ever show up to their shows. So every once in a while, you might be able to see Zandig on Japanese television.
Right.
And his promos are classic, by the way.
Yeah, let's get those pesky math shows off of fucking Japanese television and replace it with Zandig. That'll be an improvement.
Jesus!
That's what I was so impressed with when I was over in Japan. You would turn on the TV and it was like a math quiz show, and I was like, what am I living in a civilization right now? Is that what's going on here? Are these human beings that live in this country?
I tell you what, man, give it 4 years, and it'll start to piss you off.
Oh, Japan's got their own problems, and not just that their turnips glow in the dark. They've got some major.
The tuna glows in the dark too.
But it's fucking delicious.
Yeah, but and it's great, when your tongue's purple and you got no teeth, right? No big deal. No, but it's not fair to kick around Japan. They've got their problems, I mean, being racist will do that. Look at the United States of America, as a matter of fact. But here's an interesting question from the Argonian Inebriate. Do you think? Hold on, I lost it. Shit, they're moving too fast.
Was that the?
What was? Did you catch it,
I like
Mr.
his
Rowe?
Uh,
name.
Was that the thing about game developers?
Yeah. Was it game developers should
Here
be
it
able to
is.
say whatever they want to say in their
Do you
games?
think game devs should be able to say whatever they want in their games?
Absolutely. I absolutely think they should. And that goes for if God knows we've seen enough fucking games shoehorn social issues into fucking games recently. We've certainly had enough. I mean, anyone who played Mass Effect 3 and went down to engineering and had a 5-second, 5 lines of dialogue conversation with the engineer and immediately learned everything about his fucking sexual history understands that these kind of issues are being shoehorned into games. So what the fuck? Let anyone say anything. And I'm fine with that for the record, except for the kind of corporate way that it was put into the fucking game. If the developer's inspired to tell that story, let them tell that fucking story. It's like Warren Spector recently, and I respect Warren Spector, but he's from Austin, Texas, and he has an Austin, Texas political viewpoint. Was pissed off that Final Fantasy 15 has an all-male cast. And look, I'm the last person in the fucking world to be defending Final Fantasy. But if the developers are inspired to tell a fucking story about brotherhood, and they want to make, as such, they want to make their story completely decked out with an all-male playable cast, let them fucking do it. Just throw the goddamn checkpoints away. How goddamn irritating, how insulting to the intelligence is it when these developers go to make a fucking game and instead of doing what they're inspired to do, they fucking go to the checklist like a fucking McDonald's commercial and, we gotta have one black guy, one Asian chick, one lesbian, one transsexual. Like, no, chuck the fucking checklist, make your goddamn game.
Yeah, nobody complained during Final Fantasy X-2, did they? That was an all-female cast, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I didn't see anyone complaining about that. And that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That game was a mirror image of it. It was an all-female cast, and one of the main themes was sisterhood. Now you've got an all-male cast, and it's all about brotherhood. And
But
yet that's a problem. That's a problem.
Feminism's okay. It's okay to do that.
That's the fundamental issue, is that it really has nothing to do with the alleged impropriety of having too much of one sex, one gender, one sexual preference, one race in a fucking game. At the end of the day, it's that they want to ham-fist their fucking political viewpoint down your throat, and they're going to go through anything or anyone to fucking do it. Period. And I say get the fuck out of gaming. Period.
Well, the fact remains is that if you are... there's this idea that these are products designed to... attract a certain demographic. If that's what you're after, you are the fucking problem and need to get out of here. If you have no story to tell, that means you're merely here because you have something to prove or you have $1 that you need to make. And that's all. And that's a serious fucking problem. And there's also a lot of discussion about Anita Sarkeesian, and believe me, she's going through a table at some point or another. I just wanted to make that clear.
Chaos!
I want to
get the table.
If it happens and the fist tells me to get a table, I'm getting a table. Bitch is going through a table. Just thought I thought I'd share that.
Yeah, as long as I don't have to spread her legs and you don't have to jump off the top rope into her snatch. As long as that doesn't have to happen.
Well, I'll definitely be putting my tongue away anyway. Everything I know that. There'll be none of that.
And you won't be saying what up before you drop. Gotcha.
Oh, just looking at her gives me a lisp.
I heard it.
But anyway, and I love how I'm getting amen now. Everyone wants to see me put a woman through a table.
It all depends on the woman. That's the thing.
That's true. That's true. I
Does
wish I could.
anybody else, they probably have a problem with it.
Well, as I've said on this program before, I wish I could live the Tommy Dreamer life in that when Tommy Dreamer pile drove his wife through a table.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be quite as cool as that, but it would be along those lines. A lot of people want to know what we think about Rey Mysterio and his accident in Mexico,
Yeah, I just read that too.
leading to the passing of Pedro Aguayo Jr. And I don't know that there's really been anything said. I know that there's still an investigation ongoing.
Nobody blames Rey Mysterio. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't even make contact on the move.
There are actually people who are blaming Rey Mysterio, and I know it's the usual fucking trolls.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of fucking morons who see a headline and just jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
But if you watch the fucking video footage, the guy made contact with the ropes, and that's what probably killed him.
And
it was just a freak accident. Rey Mysterio's move didn't even connect. He didn't fuck up at all. It was just one of those things. You take your life in your hands when you go into a fucking wrestling ring, and unfortunately it didn't work out for the guy. I feel bad for his family. I feel really bad for Rey Mysterio because he's got to be taking it hard.
Oh, absolutely.
It's gotta suck.
Yeah.
There
photos surfaced of Mr. Aguayo's funeral, and Rey Mysterio was present. And even though, as you pointed out, he very well may not be responsible for the man's death, he still carries a very, very heavy burden on his shoulders. And I don't think it's really very cool to shit all over him at a time like this.
Well, and as you imagine he would, this is not the first instance of this ever happening. There are a multitude of stories that you could tell about, people dying, in the ring. And not every wrestling, this is something that's been shrouded in hyperbole ever since the death of kayfabe. Not everything is the murder of Frank Bruiser Brody. Shit happens. It's dangerous. This could have been a collapsed aorta, even if this was a collapsed aorta, which I haven't heard whether it is or not, this is not the first time this happened. I forgot who it was. I was going to bring up an example of a collapsed aorta that happened exactly the same way in Mid-South way back when, and I fucking forget it, but if I remember it, I'll shout it out at the top. But this is not the first time this has happened, and as we've said already, you got to feel bad for poor Rey Mysterio, because Rey Mysterio, and as far as I know, and as long as I've been following professional wrestling, has a tremendous track record in terms of being safe in the ring. I have never heard of him injuring. He's 5 feet 4 inches. I got a leg bigger than Rey Mysterio. I don't know, So that's just a shame, and for that to go on that way, especially. And this is the thing, and I want to say fuck you to all these people that are casting these aspersions on him. This was his friend.
Yeah.
You aren't taking this into consideration. And I know that there's all this thing about young people not knowing, and old people not knowing what they're saying on the internet and how it's affecting people, but this was his friend. I know that there's always a space for the trolls and there's room for humor, but don't be disgusting.
Somebody died.
Someone died. Cool. And now the fact of the remains that he died, his problems are over. He doesn't have to pay bills ever again and all that stuff. But imagine, that your job is to take care of your friend in the ring, and your friend dies.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute.
Yep.
What were you saying, Mr. Riley?
No, it reminds me actually a lot of, if you've ever seen an interview with D'Lo Brown where he's asked about Droz.
Oh boy.
And to this day, D'Lo and Droz have not watched the tape of the accident because neither one frankly wants to know. And Droz didn't blame him. Didn't blame D'Lo Brown. Said, I kind of fucked up, whatever. I just didn't put my head up and whatever. And it's like, but D'Lo was never the same. I mean, he was never the same. He never wrestled the same. He almost quit. He had just... It's a fucked up situation. You don't want to hurt some guy that you're working with. Jesus Christ. Unless, of course, you're New Jack.
Oh, well.
That's a different story.
New Jack or Abdullah in certain periods, apparently.
Yeah.
But
that's that's a blatant shanking, though. That goes way beyond what anybody else do.
God, now my feelings are hurt. God damn. Not that I know New Jack or anything, but and it reminds me of, and there's people that will say, for those of you who remember Stone Cold Steve Austin's career-shortening incident with Owen Hart, a botched reverse pile driver in, I want to say, the Royal Rumble 1999. And there are people that I've seen interviews with that say that Owen was never the same because he had never hurt anybody before. And I don't know. I've heard rumors, and I don't want to speculate on the rumors, but there are people that I understand who say that Stone Cold and Owen Hart never made up.
Yeah, they were never cool about it again. And the reason why is because Owen Hart didn't talk to Austin after it happened. He couldn't deal with it. He didn't even make any overture like, I'm sorry, I fucked up, whatever. He never made any overtures, and they never really spoke again. I'm not saying it's the best thing to do, but you can kind of understand how could you face somebody, and not to mention those are two guys that were touring constantly throughout that period, and Owen died not long after that, so it's not like 10 years went by. Like Owen Hart died 7 months later.
The comments,
no, it was a year and a half.
Chat room is saying, the chat room is saying SummerSlam '97.
Yeah, it was SummerSlam '97, and Owen was dead by May of '99. So a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Oh God, I guess my brain always clumps all those really shitty pay-per-views all together because they're all the same.
But it's still not a very long stretch of time. It's really not. It was, and especially with how fast everything was moving at that time. I mean, Austin became the champion at the following WrestleMania, and then he lost the belt, and then he got it back. I mean, just things happened so much faster back then because we didn't have storylines that lasted a year and a half like we have now. I mean, Jesus Christ. How many people when you saw... Yeah, how many people when you saw the Andre Battle Royal and the Mizdow breakup just rolled your eyes, not because it was bad, but because you knew, oh great, now it's like a solid year of these two guys fighting each other with absolutely no resolution. One guy's going to win, then the other guy's going to win, and nobody's going to come out ahead because that's what WWE does in 2015.
Well, and not only that, they paid almost no attention. Like, oh, they had a disagreement in the ring, and that's supposed to spur a feud. It's like, no, you say something about somebody's mother, that spurs a feud, not you kicked me in a battle royal. But once again, I don't want to degrade myself to be like all the other internet smarts who are a bunch of fucking armchair bookers. I don't want to be like that. So we're gonna move back. You do? All right. Well then, we'll be sure and have you on next time. That way we can
let my smirk flag fly.
But anyway, let's get back to video games because I understand we're boring some people. Well, fuck you. I guess I can say that.
That's not a statement of my virtues. It's a statement of the lack of virtues in modern WWE booking. I could trip and fall on my ass down a flight of stairs, and the first thought that came to my mind as soon as I regained consciousness would be a better booking decision than whatever WWE could generate after an exhaustive 15-hour meeting with a room full of fucking pimple-faced 20-year-olds.
Oh, how dare you talk that way about the WWE creative team?
the conglomerate of writers.
The same people who are writing The Simpsons, as a matter of fact.
Oh, but I wrote one season of Will and Grace. That's fantastic. Great. You should really be booking wrestling. It sounds like that's a good qualification there.
Fabulous. Here it is. Melphis Guy wants to know, favorite underrated Super NES RPG? There's a lot of them because there is an absolute ass ton of RPGs on the Super Nintendo.
Underrated, though?
Underrated? Well, that depends on the circles you travel in. Because if you get into those really niche groups, which I think is all the listeners on the 8-Bit podcast, everybody's heard of every
I can tell you my least bit overrated. I can tell you my least bit overrated SNES RPG.
Well, lay it on us.
Fuck Earthbound. I fucking hate that game. Fuck that game.
I'm with you, man. I'm not a big Earthbound fan either.
I don't see what the hype's about. It's an RPG. It's whatever. The
concept is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the concept that was put forth on Earthbound was better executed in later games like Secret of Evermore.
That's my favorite underrated SNES RPG.
Yeah, that's a fantastic. That's a fantastic game. But
it's great.
For my favorite underrated SNES RPG, my 100th episode extravaganza is going to be coming up, and let's just say Breath of Fire makes an appearance.
Ooh.
Okay.
We can't get a pop or anything. I wish there was applause or something.
Yeah, crowd noise. Actually, there is. There's After Effects there. But
there is. Okay, well, as soon as I find it, then you're going to get some applause, young man.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But I was thinking about this just now, and I think about Earthbound. I think Earthbound was just an RPG that failed to get the Charlie Brown license. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but that's just what it strikes me as.
Are you sure it didn't fail to get the Charlie Bronson license? Are you sure?
Oh, maybe.
Okay, wait a minute. I know there's a lot of people in here, longtime followers of the 8-Bit Podcast, who are budding game designers. If you can make a Charles Bronson RPG,
oh my God,
I would be glad to give it each one of us would be glad to give it a glowing review.
Yeah, but you can't even say the words Charles Bronson and RPG in the same sentence without something exploding.
Well, that and no matter who you are not man enough to play the role of Charles Bronson.
It's true.
You can only have one title though. Only one title. This ain't over.
You can only play for 3 minutes at a time because your hands slowly grow a beard. It's just how it works.
Oh goodness gracious! But it's interesting because it depends on what circles you travel in to find out what is or is not underrated these days. It's so amazing to watch some of the videos that come out on YouTube, and I try and watch all the videos from, at least most of the videos that I can get my hands on, and there's so many hidden gems, underrated videos that come out of games that I've known about for years, so you really have to think about what is or is not underrated, what is or is not a hidden gem, now with the power of the internet able to tell everybody about these games, and not to mention to perpetuate bullshit about a dump site in Alamogordo, New Mexico, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah, alleged.
Alleged.
Alleged dump site in.
Yeah, you notice they knew right where it was.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you didn't know, I'm referencing Atari Game Over, which has now recently been added to Netflix, and
so go watch the first 30 seconds like Yell Chaos did.
Yeah, I made it 30 seconds in until they repeated everything from YouTube circa 2011, and I said, yeah, I can go. So, but I'm trying to think. The one that was big with my friends, and I guess Chrono Trigger's a big one, so I was going to say, that's the funny thing, is if you go to young kids and say Chrono Trigger, no sell. If you go to men like my age, Chrono Trigger, holy shit, man, I remember we got super high, stayed up all night long, Chrono Trigger.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, because Chrono Trigger, I don't remember that many people playing it back in the day. It seems like a game that everybody got into once emulators came around.
That's because you must not be big into drugs, because people who are into drugs love Chrono Trigger.
Because I remember going up to Walmart or whatever to look for SNES games, and whereas you might have 5 copies of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past sitting on the shelf, there'd be 1 copy of Chrono Trigger. They didn't order many copies of it. It wasn't.
Yeah, and it was the same copy they had since launch.
Kind of the same thing, yeah, exactly. Kind of the same thing happened when Breath of Fire 2 came out. Which, I mean, I love Breath of Fire, but those games weren't hugely popular, and I think Chrono Trigger was kind of the same way when it came out. But then it seemed like later is when the revisionism happened, and suddenly it was this peerless classic of the SNES era, and everybody played it, even though common logic dictates that most of those people have to be lying through their teeth. Because not that many people bought the game or played it, and it wasn't really available for rent at a lot of places. I remember going to Blockbuster, and only certain locations even had copies of Chrono Trigger.
I remember renting it at a Blockbuster.
Yeah, it wasn't that fucking popular, and they might have 1 copy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of the way it was.
And you better beat it in the 3 days you have it for, because your save file is going to be gone the next time you get it.
Yeah, people are going to kill your goddamn save file, bastards.
And we wonder what contributed to being underrated.
Oh, this guy's 90% through. Delete.
Yeah, when you're a kid,
that happened to him. I could tell by that laugh.
When you're a kid, you have a much higher tolerance for repeating the same activities over and over and over again. So I must have played back through the same RPGs. I played back through the beginning of Breath of Fire 2 at least a dozen times because of fucking rentals. Because you couldn't find a hard copy of that game anywhere, just like Chrono Trigger. It was hard to fucking find.
Hence, again, making it underrated. Somebody brought up the Lufia series, which I have virtually no experience with the Lufia
I've
series, so that
never
makes it
played
extremely underrated with me. Is anybody else familiar? I've
know
seen
of them.
I've
Yeah.
seen the videos, and I've never had a chance to play Lufia myself. And I know Lufia 2 is not very easy to come by. I couldn't
I know of them. That's about it.
You mean to tell me you don't have it?
Personally.
I don't.
Well, then congratulations,
yeah, I mean,
whoever said that. You have stumped the 8-Bit podcast for once. We are at a loss for words. That never happens.
One I really enjoyed was Shadowrun, the SNES. I thought that was fantastic. There's a number of underrated RPGs from the SNES era, but I think for me, definitely chief among them is Breath of Fire, because it was kind of supposed to be the Final Fantasy killer, and it never really got to that place. But it had such potential because Breath of Fire 2 was just so... Breath of Fire 2 was better than any Final Fantasy game that had come out to that point, no fucking question. But it was like, after 3, which was sort of like the peak, it kind of went down and Capcom just sort of lost interest. It just seemed like... Because 4 is great, but not a lot of people played it, and it didn't have a very high print run. And then we don't like to talk about Dragon Quarter. But...
To be fair, I may have a Lufia game somewhere around here, and I just forgot about it. As far as underrated 16-bit ones, I do like the 16-bit Dragon Quest games. Those are pretty fun. And an action RPG, but an RPG nonetheless. I do like Front Mission Gun Hazard, and that's all I got because I don't really like the other Front Mission games.
Well, excellent. Oh, there we go again with everyone being short of speech. This never happens on this program. So again.
Oh no, I was waiting for you to read another goddamn question. I'm not on the.
Well,
I'm
working on the
video.
goddamn questions. If you want to gush for a second, give me a minute.
See, I can't. See, I don't actually see the chat, so I can't actually respond to these.
Well, I'm working on it. But people want us to revisit. Now, Razorfist, you brought up the GameCube, and they want to know favorite GameCube titles, which there were many.
Yeah, goddamn. I mean, there's so many games on the GameCube that were... I mean, everyone has to throw out the remake, the Resident Evil remake, because it was just fantastic. And, of course, was recently re-released, and in HD, it's the same fucking version, guys. Let's be real, it's not in HD. They just fucking made it widescreen. Don't lie. This is great. And I'm pretty sure most of it is anamorphic widescreen as well. But anyways, that game is absolutely superb. A lot of the Mega Man X stuff. Actually, didn't Mega Man X move to PS2 exclusive? I can't remember.
PlayStation.
I think.
I always enjoyed, even though it's kind of a vapid game, just a good action game with a lot of style and absolutely no story. One of those Capcom exclusives on the GameCube, product number 3. It's actually a lot of fun. Really weird, like, fighting system, and it's kind of like you're wearing like a mech suit, and there's techno blaring, and the chick is like rocking out to it, and you're firing lasers from your wrist for some reason. I don't know. It's an interesting game, but it's another one of those weird GameCube exclusives. There were all these strange, just completely under the radar exclusives on the GameCube, kind of like with the Xbox. It are very, very strange. But there's a number of really good exclusive games on the console. Just another example of how Nintendo doesn't abandon a platform when it doesn't take off immediately.
Absolutely. And there's people that want to know, are you going to go against Jim Sterling in a TLC match? But I realize Jim Sterling would get winded on the walk down the ramp, so I don't even know why this is a discussion.
Yeah, but come on. Could Jim Sterling look at a table without eating it? Let's be real.
Again, being winded long before the thing ever started. So, on the other hand, I'm sure he could, him in his Otho suit could go through. We shouldn't badmouth Jim Sterling.
Yes, we should.
Jim Sterling's such an easy target because you can see him from like Philadelphia.
That's true.
So,
I can see him from here.
well, bravo.
There's another game. Someone in the chat mentioned Twilight Princess. Why the fuck didn't I think of that?
Somebody else.
That game is so much better on GameCube than on Wii. It's not even funny.
Somebody mentioned Twin Snakes too.
Oh, Twin Snakes is garbage. It is garbage. They took like one of 2 games that are decent in the Metal Gear Solid series, and they turned it into the fucking Matrix. Snakes doing backflips off of missiles in midair and posing dramatically in front of fire, and there's fucking bullet time, and cyborg ninjas are carving up chunks of the ceiling and fucking Guile flash kicking them over at Snake. Like, what the fuck is going on in this game? What is going on? It is like Kojima was less involved in that game. I mean, he was involved in it, but he didn't technically direct it. And yet it's like even more Kojima than a proper Kojima-produced game. So I'm not a fan of Twin Snakes, although I did a video on this subject a number of years ago.
Well, speaking of Kojima, a lot of people now. Razorfist, you made quite the. In fact, your rant about he who shall not be named leaving Konami.
Jeff Scott Soto?
Huh? Actually, it was Matt Levin, but still. There's people that want to know about. Now, you did a rant about Kojima leaving. And in fact, my brother-in-law asked me, what do I think about Hideo Kojima leaving Konami? And the same thing I told my mother when she told me my great-grandmother died. Fucking finally.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I mean, you can only keep a corpse on life support for so long before it's just a drain on your bank account.
Yeah.
Hideo Kojima has been there for so long. He's clearly not interested in making video games. He's interested in fucking with you. And now that's gotten boring, and he's going to take his millions of yen and go fuck with somebody else, it seems.
Which amounts to what, $10?
It's not very much money, by the way. Yeah, it's not very much money, by the way.
Not a whole lot.
Okay, his collection of Japanese seawater.
His collection of top-of-the-line Japanese hipster glasses.
I mean, his collection of nuclear seaweed. That's what he's going to show off to all the people. He's going to be the new Varg Vikernes, and he's going to review Japanese RPGs.
Look, I think it's pretty simple. I think he was trying to... I mean, it's kind of twofold for him. Clearly, he wants to move on from Metal Gear Solid. He has said it after every single game in the series. He's threatened to do that. I've always suspected that part of that was he wanted to raise his stock at Konami. And each time it has worked, to the point where, after the last one, he was appointed VP of Konami. So clearly he has been raising his stock by every single time claiming, okay, I'm done with Metal Gear Solid and I'm going to leave. And every single time Konami's like, no, please don't leave, here's a bunch of money. Every single time. And I think this time it just kind of backfired on him. And look, he's also wanted to work with Western developers as well, so he probably figured no matter how loudly he proclaims his desire to leave Metal Gear Solid and Konami forever, the worst thing that can happen is he winds up leaving and his stock is so high by that point that a Western developer, and this is probably what's going to happen, is going to give him metric shitloads of money to make his glorified fucking movies. For a Western developer, and that's probably what's going to happen.
I should neglect to mention that people think that he was paid out in noodle rations.
Do you like it?
but anyway, and apparently test audiences are full of shit. Somebody wants to know, favorite movie alternate ending that test audiences hated. That's such
a what? Fucking, do any of you watch old spaghetti westerns?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
So have you ever seen The Great Silence?
No.
Okay, The Great Silence is really interesting because it's like, it's a western from during the heart of the spaghetti western boom, and the bad guys fucking win. And they murder the shit out of the good guys. And just, that's it. The bad guys win, they walk away. There's no comeuppance. They don't wind up being miserable. Nothing bad happens to them. The bad guys just kill the good guy and move on, right? And that's the ending. But I always felt it was kind of gimmicky, and so I guess in African countries, for some reason, it didn't test well. And so they demanded that a happy ending be made for the movie. And It only played in South Africa, the happy ending or whatever. But actually, the bad ending, I think, is kind of shitty and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, even though it's all, oh, it's so artistic because we made this bold artistic statement that the good guys don't always win. Like, I understand that's kind of novel for 1968 or whenever the fuck this movie came out, but it's still kind of gimmicky. The happy ending actually makes more sense and is more badass because the good guys, like, jumping through windows and fucking killing guys and shit. It makes no fucking sense because this guy's been, like, putting bullets between people's eyes the entire time, and then he just walks over to the bad guy, gets shot in the hand, gets murdered in the fucking street, and that's it. So I would say, like, The Great Silence for me, the happy ending for that is actually better, even though it's ham-fisted. There's no good ending for that movie, let's just say that.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, and I know this movie was a blockbuster, but kind of like the ending to Tombstone, how the good guys don't really win, Wyatt Earp just becomes what he hates.
Yeah.
And then disappears into the sunset. The one that really bothers me, and still to this day, and this movie came out, I think, in like 1957, was The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. If you've never seen, and not the 77 version with Donald Sutherland, but The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, if you've never seen it, has a great big fat sort of, I guess dysphoric ending in that. The movie star Kevin McCarthy looks to the camera when the aliens are about to take over the planet and says, "You're next!" Yeah, and that was the end of the movie. And then the fine folks over at fucking Paramount said there needs to be a happy ending to this. And so there was a happy ending, and they finally got help, and the government came and saved the one time the government ever came and helped anybody. and the government saved everything, and all was well, and he got a blanket, and it was okay. That's, I think, quite the opposite of what you stated, is where they just totally, the whole "you're next" and the tension disappeared. So I didn't care for that.
Perfect.
Well, and you'd have to throw out my favorite movie ever, Blade Runner, which the initial theatrical cut, it sucks so hard because there's no perfect cut of this movie, really. I like the final cut. But there are things that I don't like about it. Like, for instance, I enjoy the narration, the detective narration of Harrison Ford, but it's not in the final cut. So there's no perfect version of the movie for me. But the theatrical cut of the movie included a happy ending that is just the most ridiculous thing that has ever been filmed, ever. It's like you have this cyberpunk downbeat, this guy's running around murdering androids the entire fucking movie, and there's blood and guts and grime and smoke and pollution and whatever, and then it's like at the end of the movie he's engaged, or not engaged, but he's banging this android chick, and at the end of the movie they're just driving along in a fucking verdant forest and rolling green hills in the background in his cyberpunk car, and there's no pollution, and it's like, we found out that Rachel's gonna live forever, and so am I, because neither of us are fucking robots. The end. And that's basically the ending of the goddamn movie. And that was entirely because test audiences are such drooling, pituitary imbeciles that when they watch the original cut of the film, which just closes at the elevator and that's it, and it goes to the credits, which is how it always should have fucking ended. And so they threw that one into the last minute. But it doesn't work at all. Every other thing about the theatrical cut I think is better. But that's the one thing that fucking ruins it for me.
But that director's cut basically changes everything with like a single sentence, which is when she asks him if he's ever taken the void comp himself, and that kind of like changes the whole. That's actually
in the original theatrical cut. What's added in the what's added in the director's cut is the unicorn scene, that basically makes it seem like he's having a reverie of a unicorn. He's sitting at his piano being depressive and Blade Runner, and he has a vision of a unicorn, and then at the end of the movie they add in the tinfoil unicorn, which was always in the theatrical cut, but it never made any sense because the unicorn scene had been cut out. And so it makes it seem like
because
Gaff
Edward James file. Almost.
Yeah, it makes it seem like Gaff read his file and knows that he's thinking about unicorns because he's a goddamn robot, which is... I like that it suggests that idea. What I don't like is that whenever Blade Runner 2 comes out, because Ridley Scott is bad at making movies now, he's going to come right out and say, oh, Deckard was a replicant and whatever, and it's going to take all the mystery away and completely shit on the goddamn movie. Like, I like the idea of the question.
Didn't he already say that, though?
He did come out and say that. He didn't say it within the movie. That's what's important. They suggest it extremely strongly, although there are facts in the movies that contradict it as well. But that's what I hate about the idea that Blade Runner 2 is going to exist. And I sincerely hope that either Ridley Scott or Harrison Ford die before they can make that movie. Because we don't need a fucking Blade Runner 2. We don't! We just don't. The first movie was perfect as a standalone statement. Leave it the fuck alone.
So apparently the solution to the modern movie industry is to wish for death.
It's to over-explain the shit out of everything. That's what the modern movie industry is about.
Well, I guess that's where the WWF gets it from, then.
Hey!
In fact, Mr. Riley and myself were talking this morning. It's like, you know what's really cute is that Vince McMahon thinks he owns a real movie studio. That's so adorable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Steve the Marine.
Now there's a couple of questions. There's a couple of questions here that I think are very poignant. Number one being, who is your daddy and what does he do? But outside of that,
my mom says that my dad's a sex machine.
Oh my God! I need more alcohol. That was terrible. I never met your dad. Oh God.
That's
I know, and I appreciate.
Question. Just playing along at home.
Well, thank you, and we hope each and every one of you make sure to pick up 8-Bit Podcast, the home game, so you can ask your father if he's a sex machine.
Yeah.
Now there's been a few questions about this, and our thoughts on Fatal Frame 5 coming over to the Wii U, and there's a few people that seem to get it wrong and say that Nintendo have directly paid Tecmo because of the hole in their schedule provided or created by the delay of Zelda Wii U until 2016. Someone seemed to not notice that Nintendo owns the Fatal Frame series. They bought it last year, and it was pretty big news, and everybody shit their pants over it. Now you forgot. Not to cast aspersions on you, but thoughts about Fatal Frame 5. I hope it actually comes here, because we never got Fatal Frame 4. That's my feelings on it anyway. Mr. Fisty, are you at all familiar with that series?
I am. I think it's one of the better horror series out there, actually. It's interesting. It's got a really weird, kind of quirky art style. I've always enjoyed Fatal Frame, although, in the interest of full disclosure, I've never played any of them to completion. Not because I didn't like them, but because I just never had the opportunity to. I've rented them a few times, that kind of fucking thing. Back when rental places existed. But I enjoyed them a lot, and I'm glad to see that one's going to be coming to Wii U. It's been a long time since we've had a proper fucking Fatal Frame game. So I'm excited. It can only be good for Nintendo. It's just going to diversify their gaming portfolio, which is already better in terms... I mean, look, Nintendo curb stomps everyone when it comes to first-party exclusives. We all know that. But it's just going to diversify their portfolio even more, because God knows we're never going to get another fucking Eternal Darkness, so...
Well, no, and you see those guys could fuck up a cup of coffee, so let's not, pretend like that just rested on the shoulders of Japan. What were you going to say, Mr. Riley?
Nothing.
Nothing? All right, well, thank you. And
Thanks for the contribution.
Yeah, exactly. And Kid Shoryuken, are you pleasantly sauced?
I am. I'm super sauced right now, and even though it doesn't really matter to me if it comes to the U.S. or not, because I'll get it eventually, I think that's pretty cool that they're gonna release Fatal Frame in the U.S. again. That's one of my all-time favorite horror series. I've never played the fourth one. I've played through the first three. They're all super fun. They're creepy. They're genuinely scary games, and some of my favorites. So again, it doesn't really matter to me all that much what region they come out in or not, but it's nice. It's nice to see that kind of thing happening.
I agree. It's a great thing, and as Mr. Fisk talked about, a way of diversifying the offerings on Wii U. There was talk, though, that Fatal Frame 5 didn't do so well upon its Japanese release. And how do I put this capably? These are the people that have survived 2 nuclear disasters. They're getting harder to scare all the time. So that shouldn't be all that surprising. And they also eat whale bacon, so there's that.
Yeah. When they aren't clubbing dolphins to death.
Baby seals.
Those are the Canadians.
Which is perfectly all right, by the way.
And those are Canadians, and if they keep it up, it's going to be an Olympic event. It's going to replace wrestling. You watch. I believe it.
I'd watch it.
Now, and Mr. Fist, I want to lean this on you. Is it true there's going to be a Weird Al music mythos? Is that true?
Yeah, that's not happening. That's not.
Well, that's a shame. Well, then please tune in to the Yell Chaos program in a few months and tune in for Weird Al's music mythos. Can I do that? I don't even know if I can do that. I might have to fill out paperwork or something.
To Razor Fist, what would happen if WCW came back?
They'd lose even more money.
It would be called TNA.
Oh no! Dixie Carter wishes on her best fucking day she could be World Championship Wrestling. And I've talked about this with Mr. Riley and Mr. Fist and Kid Shoryuken many times. WCW post like 1987 is a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Well, I don't know about that. They did have a few brief peaks here and there. It's never as cut and dry as all that. Even WWE, which has been unwatchable tripe since about 1999 or early 2000, I'll say. Even them, they've had occasional spikes in quality. 2004 was kind of a high point, 2006, and then it's been all downhill since then, basically. Yeah. But WCW had a few spikes here and there. I thought when they brought in Vader. To feud with some of the bigger names in WCW, I thought that was kind of cool in the early 90s. I thought the very beginning of the NWO was brilliant. It was only after that when they, bogged it down with a bunch of fucking B-listers who just wanted to wear the shirt and pose and be cool in the fucking ring and had nothing better to do. And that's when it started to go downhill.
I think that, watching it, though, in reruns, I've watched the old reruns of Nitro where they're having wrestling at fucking Disneyland or Disney World in the middle of July. People are sweating under their titties through their shirts and shit. And Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are just allowed to walk around wherever they fuck they want in this multi-million-dollar television operation anytime they want.
Hey, someone just asked me, sorry, to Razorfest, any cyberpunk comic that I would recommend with the exception of Mobius's The Long Tomorrow. I would recommend Angel Stomp Future, which is a one-shot by Warren Ellis and Juan Jose Uribe, one of my favorite artists. And I would also recommend a Vertigo comic called Sleeper that was really fucking good. So, sorry, I cut you guys off. Continue.
No, not a big deal. And someone asked, they said that Silent Rob probably got hit by a train. Actually, Silent Rob was taken away on a train. He's currently polishing the insides of bullet casings. And... yes, Schindler's List reference right here on the 8-Bit Podcast. Tell me that we don't have quality entertainment right here.
But, at least you weren't making out during Schindler's List.
How do you know
Seinfeld reference.
Oh, I see.
Seinfeld.
Yeah, next thing you know, we're going to be talking about Frugger.
Yeah, it was a Seinfeld reference within a Schindler's List It was referenceception. Yes.
That's, you know what, this is the greatest podcast in the history of the internet. I want to make sure that everyone knows that. Anyway, something that the comment box has been overflowing with about the Super Smash Ballot. Yes, fans, the Super Smash Ballot announced at the most recent Nintendo Direct, where, and I want to do this just the way that he did it. Global President of Nintendo Satoru Iwata said that you can send Super Smash Brothers candidates request directly, not this direction, but directly to Nintendo. And there's been a lot of talk about who do we need to have in Super Smash Brothers. Now, I'm of the mind that there's already too many goddamn people in Smash Brothers, but you can never have too many. And I am still voting for Andros from Star Fox and Dr. Ryuta Kawashima from Brain Age. Those are the two that I really need to see. But I didn't vote. I didn't vote because I have no dog in the race. But Mr. Sean Riley, he's just would not shut up about it and tell me who did you want in there?
I voted for I voted for CM Punk because those EA UFC games are terrible.
As good a reason as
so
any.
He'd be in and a lot of people are voting for Amazon from the old pro wrestling game from the NES.
I saw that people are voting for Starman, which is a lot of people drew a correlation to Stardust, Cody Rhodes, so that's interesting in its own way.
Yeah.
Mr. Fist, I know you're not much a fan of the Smash Brothers, but do you have a take on this?
I love Smash Brothers, but I haven't played a Smash Brothers game since like the GameCube, so I'm kind of out of the loop. So I really don't feel qualified to opine on the subject. I do love Smash Brothers though.
Melee was the last good Smash Brothers game.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm not
Well, I
sure. I
haven't
can't really
played
opine one way or another, so I have no idea.
Brawl was bad.
Well, yeah. Now that we've had the opinion of 4chan, Mr. Riley, what do you really think?
About.
Oh.
Anyway, I'm
with the buzzing.
Woo! Wait. Woo!
Hey, someone just said put Daredevil in Smash. I would do it. I would smash it, as it were.
I couldn't see that.
I can see it as well as fucking Solid Snake being ham-fisted in the goddamn game. I can see it every bit as well as that.
I was making a reference to Daredevil being blind. I was making a reference to Daredevil being blind.
I see what you did there.
No,
Very
you
good.
didn't see anything.
That was that was what they call an underhanded left-wing tribute. Is that what that was?
Well, I sensed it with my fucking radar vision.
By 7th sense.
But I must say, I love the Smash Brothers series, but I am terrified of the competitive Smash players.
Ooh, Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson, you know, it's the one that I saw. The one that I saw that, and quite a few people sent this in. They want Alpha Omega Sin in Super Smash Brothers, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant. If you didn't know,
you can already put your Mii's in the game, right?
I do it every single time.
Yeah.
So
he's already technically in Smash Brothers. So.
That's true. He is already technically there. So there's that. And also, for those of you wondering where Alpha Omega Sin is, he is currently blind in Texas, chasing around.
Yeah, Wasp reference.
That's right. He's chasing around with some chodes. So he's doing his thing, and he'll be back with us very soon. So for those of you that didn't know, but anyway, Kid Shoryuken, do you have any thoughts about the Super Smash Ballad?
Yeah, I don't vote.
So un-American.
And thank you for abiding in the American way. I thank you very much. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to have to do it. We're about out of time, so we thank you for joining us right here on Pissing in the Livestream number 7. We hope to see you next time. And so be on the lookout. And don't forget, follow each and every one of us on the Facebook, on the YouTube, on the Twitter. You can find all that information down below. And don't forget to follow the 8-Bit Podcast and join the 8-Bit Podcast Network of Hate Facebook group and check all that out, and we'll have the information. Now, as you know, I am your intrepid host, the mighty El Chaos, wishing you a hearty goodbye, and I hope you have a great time. Joining me was the Texan Terror, Kid Shoryuken.
I was here.
Yes, you were. The monster.
No, you weren't.
And we can't take that away from you. The monster of Riverside County, Sean Riley.
Yoshi says, eat a dick.
That's very important.
If he
and of course,
gets kidnapped, would that mean he was being held for Riverside ransom?
Maybe.
I see what you did there. I see that. Oh, that was a good one. Anyway,
where'd Jim go?
He's off somewhere else. Anyway.
See, I love that Kid Shoryuken's the only one drunk enough to think that was funny. I didn't think that.
Is that butt crack? Is there butt crack in the?
I hope not.
I think this is like the second appearance on the 8-Bit Podcast of butt crack. Anyway, and joining us in the technical side, the bullet belt messiah, Mr. Razorfist.
There you go, right there. God fucking speed, folks. Thanks for joining us.
And I want to recommend each and every one of you to once again follow us, and also to remind you that you guys are great. And this has been the 8-Bit Podcast. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Spell it right, people.